Hello, and thanks for joining us online today. To get the most out of your experience, you can download the Grace Church app and tap on the Sunday Morning tab. You'll be able to take notes, access the Bible, and fill out a response card. If you'd like to check out other messages from other Sundays, you can find those there as well. It's also a great way to share Grace Church with others. Well, this online experience is made possible through the generosity of people just like you at Grace Church. And if you'd like to contribute to what God is doing here, you can also do that in the app at worcestergrace.org or simply by texting Grace Church Woo to 77977. Well, thanks again and enjoy the service.
Hi, Miss Smith.
Jonathan! Oh my goodness, I remember you when you were this big. Now look at you. And who is this?
Wait, don't tell me. Is this your girlfriend? Are you going to prom together? I'm so happy for you guys. Hannah's my sister. Woof, this is awkward.
Bye, Seth. Have a good day. I love you.
You too.
Your dad and I'll see you at the game. I love you.
Thanks.
Text me when you get to your friend's house. I love you.
I know. Hey, Mom. I love you too.
Well, good morning and happy Mother's Day to everybody. Thanks for being here, taking a little bit of time out of your weekend. We're continuing our series, Me and My Big Mouth, right? And Mother's Day, since it is that weekend, at the Cleveland household, I have the responsibility of helping our children ensure that they get a card to mom, right? And so this year I was doing that, and they knocked it out of the park. They did great with these homemade cards and everything. But then I decided this year, I got to do something different, especially with that card from me to my wife as mom and everything. And so we were at the store together, Vicki and I, on Monday, and we were shopping, and I found the perfect card. We're in the card aisle. She's shopping for some cards for her mom, and I'm looking, I found the perfect card. I'm like, hey, Vicki, come over here. And I read it to her, gave her a hug, told her Happy Mother's Day, put it back, say $4.59 plus tax. It's definitely the way to go, definitely the way to do it, right? But you've been there, right? You've been in the card aisle, and you're like, man, I need to find the card that says the perfect thing, says exactly what I want to say, right? Because it's Mother's Day, and we have to find exactly the right words because what is said sticks, right? And so I was looking through a lot of cards, and there were some that I would never think about giving to my mom, and maybe this will be a help for you if you're a young adult or whatever, but I found some not so good Mother's Day cards. Mom, I love you loads. Speaking of loads, can you do my laundry, right? Maybe your child has come home from college and done that to you. Or how about this? So, Mom, I'm really sorry that I haven't moved out yet, right? That's just a little free advice for you. I'm not going to throw out any ages or anything, but you know it if you're talking about you. Mom, I bet you're relieved I turned out so awesome. Good work, right? Because Mother's Day is all about me, right? Anyway, right? This is one of my favorites because it just says, thank you, Mom, because only moms can put up with the pickiness of cutting off the crust of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? Just thank you for being that way with me, right? Or how about this one? I have become my mother. Are you happy now, right? That's from a daughter for sure. But we want to say the perfect thing to mom on Mother's Day, and that's important, right? But it's also important to say the right thing to anybody, really on any day. It doesn't have to be a special occasion. To make sure that what comes out of our mouth is filled with life, right? Because our words have significance. Our words carry weight. Our words, the things that we have said, they stick. And today we're going to talk about the fact that our words carry consequences. Consequences for good or bad, for better or worse. They're there. Have you ever been around someone that when you're talking to them and you mention a movie, they can instantaneously quote something from the movie, like drop lines like crazy? You feel like they kind of go around speaking in movie language, right? Like, and they just say it. You say the title, they say a line from it, because there are words that are said on the screen that stick with us for generations. You can imagine Dorothy clicking her heels together. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. You can see in your mind Yoda, no, try not. Do or do not. There is no try. You can almost see E.T.'s finger. And I won't do his voice, but E.T. phone home, right? You know, that sticks with us for generations. You can see the face in A Few Good Men of, you can't handle the truth, right? Those are words that stay with us for generations. And it's not just in the movies. You got the speeches. The I have a dream speech, right? That crosses generations. Or that's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. We remember where we were when those things were said, or the first time we heard them. Why? Because what is said sticks. It stays with us. Our words have weight and consequence. And King Solomon, one of the wisest and wealthiest men to ever live, wrote most of the Proverbs. And he wants to help us understand that there is a longevity to our language that we better be aware of. And in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, starting in verse 20, he says this, "From the fruit of their mouth, a person's stomach is filled. With the harvest of their lips, they are satisfied. The tongue," listen to this, "has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Our words are powerful. What starts in our heart comes out of our mouth and lands in other people's spaces. And we get to live with the harvest of whatever we say. We live with and we live on our words, for better or for worse. The reality of our words is where we live. There are consequences to what is said, and that's kind of scary if you think about it, isn't it? When we speak, it has an effect on other people. You might look at your language like a blank piece of paper that you can fill up and say whatever you want to say. Make sure people are staying awake over here, right? Okay, see somebody over there, right? I don't have a very good arm. Wasn't really a good baseball player, but okay. So you can crumble up a piece of paper, and some of you, you've said some things that you regret. It's like crumbling paper, but you're pretty good at undoing it. So you guys who got those, you can go ahead and open those up, right? You're pretty good at reversing it. You try to smooth it all out. You know, like you're just kind of undoing it. And you can pretend like, well, I could still read what's on the paper. And it's still there. But the effects of the crumble are there too. Some of you know this all too well. Your life got crumbled by something someone said to you. And while it's all being smoothed out and you're trying to figure out how to overcome that in life, you can still see the effect of it. The effect of our words goes on and on and on and on. That's because what is said sticks. It has a staying power. And Solomon says it's even worse than that, or even better. What sticks is so significant that it's life or death. The effect of our words have the power of life and death. The tongue is a powerful instrument. Our words can either wound or they can heal. Listen, you know because you felt the power of words that have wounded you, words of death into your space, where someone has belittled you, someone has beaten you down, someone said something about you and it still sticks. You can remember it. It was 30, 40 years ago, like it was yesterday. And you know because there's on the other side power and encouragement and kindness when someone says something to you and speaks life into your space. You're like, I'll never forget what they said to me because it gave me life. What is said sticks. For life or death, we get to live in the reality of what we speak. A couple chapters earlier, Solomon writes about a more graphic detail about the power of our words. This is what he says in Proverbs chapter 12. He says, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. You know, the average person speaks 10 to 20,000 words a day. Right around 860 million words you're going to speak in your lifetime. The question is, how will your words be remembered? How will my words be remembered? Do I want to be a person that when I look back on my life and I think of all of those words that I spoke, the things that I said, do I want life to stick or death to stick? Of course we want life to stick. But Solomon says there's only going to be two options to this. Your words, they give off life or they give off death. He says, listen, you're either going to be words that wound or words that heal. He starts out with words that wound. We got to talk about it. Words that hurt. You've heard someone say, I'm not judging you, I'm just saying. I'm not being critical, I'm just saying. Translated, they're actually being critical and they're being judgmental and they're saying it, right? Just saying means you're actually speaking it. We're very good at pointing out the little faults in other people more than we are finding things that are good, right? We know the line, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a lie. That's not true. We are so critical of people for how they chew, how they snore, how they run meetings, whether they're early, whether they're late, whether they're on time, the way they talk, what they wear. We're so good at that. Those words wound. They hurt people. And that's the first way that our words work, according to Solomon. He says, the words of the reckless, they pierce like swords. They pierce like swords. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of swords, like this one from the Civil War era, 1862 Union sword right here, right? Hello, my name is Amigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die, right? Like, had to do it. Could not do that, right? But you take a sword into battle, and you aim it right, and you lunge it at the right spot, at the right time. And then the battle is completely over. You have won. Because you have dug your sword into the flesh of another person. Words, well aimed, lunged at the right time, in the right position, into the heart of another person, sucks the life out of their soul and their heart. You make them feel empty. Words can wound fiercely. Solomon says that's because the people that speak those kind of words are reckless. They're not thinking before they're speaking. They're impulsively responding in anger and without self-control. And man, have you been there? Because I have. I've said stuff that I regret out of anger and without self-control. And I can quickly forget the words that I speak. But man, the person on the other side, they can carry it for a lifetime. Words when we're tired or frustrated or irritated or sick. They pierce like swords. And I know, in every venue, anybody watching online, you've been wounded. You've been wounded by words that someone said to you. You've been carrying them. You may not want to admit it, but it's been affecting your life until today. Solomon said those are reckless words, and they come in a variety of forms. If we were going to kind of summarize the reckless kind of language, we would call it toxic talk, right? And we've talked in the first 2 weeks about a couple of these. We've said gossip is a toxic talk, and lying is as well. But I kind of want to add a few more to the category, if you'll let me this morning, okay? Here are some toxic talk, some words that pierce like swords. Exaggeration, right? You never are on time. You are always late. You are just like your father. Maybe that's good. Words that we say that leave very little to no hope for people. They can suck the life right out of their soul because we're exaggerating on the truth, right? Another category with exaggeration would be foul language. Words that we would say that we shouldn't say, like taking the Lord's name in vain or swearing or cussing, whatever you want to call it today, right? And listen, I get this, that today in our culture, having a potty mouth is kind of just acceptable, right? Well, not necessarily. And just because it's acceptable or some people are okay with it, doesn't mean that it doesn't wound people. And you're going to argue with me and say, hey, listen, I get what you're saying, but I don't actually swear at other people. I just swear in general. Yeah? How about yourself? It actually wounds you. Because you're not able to show self-control. And this group of foul language can include name-calling and labeling. Hello. In our culture. All over the place. Racism and ethnic slurs and insensitive names have absolutely no place in the vocabulary of a follower of Jesus Christ. They have to be eliminated. There's no place for that. Those words wound people. Well, I'm not saying them to anybody. Then they wound you. Exaggeration, foul language, and criticism. Criticism, the fault finding and passing judgment. And man, we're good at finding the fault, aren't we? And when we do, we act like the religious leaders of Jesus' day, the Pharisees who like to find fault in everybody else but themselves. And really they get that from the devil, who's the accuser, the father of lies, right? He's the fault finder and the critical one all around us. But why do we do that? Why are we so critical of people? There's a couple reasons. One, we're prideful. We think we know what's best. Two, we're insecure. We like to point out flaws in other people that actually reflect our own weaknesses, but we're like, hey, you know what? I'm not very good at that, but man, I'm not as bad as he is. So point that out to make myself feel better. Classic insecurity, pride, insecurity, or flat out just ignorance. We don't actually understand the whole situation, and so we speak, and we speak critical words without getting the complete picture. And I know sometimes we do this, and we're like, well, if I would have known the whole picture, then I wouldn't have spoken like that. You know, and that's kind of justifying the freedom that we have to be critical and to be passing judgment, and that's when we throw in the phrase, I'm just saying. Hey, next time you're in that scenario, here's a better thing to say. Nothing. And wait till you understand the whole situation, right? We all can be very critical. I know I used to be very critical of people that had children in stores until I got children and took them to stores, right? Then I learned that if you have a 2-year-old, there is no such thing as a 2-year-old in a store. You cannot negotiate with a terrorist, right? It's impossible, right? And so they're sitting there and you're like, I know this is bad parenting, but yes, you can have the candy. You want a pony? Anything to please get out of this scenario. You're like, man, I'm not going to pass any more judgment. It's easy to be critical. When we think we're beyond someone, hey, for those of us that aren't a part of the youngest generation anymore, it's really easy for us to be critical of the younger generations. As though somehow we have this amazing life skill on this side that we know everything, right? And we do that because it makes us appear smarter. Now, we should have some wisdom, and hopefully we can speak that wisdom into the generations coming behind us, but it actually doesn't make us smarter to be critical of people. Do you know what you actually look like when you're critical with somebody? This is kind of like a throw down the mirror moment here, right? When you're super critical with somebody, it makes you a mean-spirited, critical-looking person. That's it. How do you want to be remembered? It ends up crushing people's self-esteem. It distances the people that you love the most. And it makes you, the speaker, look foolish. Hey, I have never met a critical person that I wanted to be like or be around. I've never met a critical person that I wanted to be like or be around. Words wound. They pierce like a sword. They take the life right out of us. And I bet every person listening to these words has some work to do here. It's a great Mother's Day message, isn't it? It's like, oh, wow, yeah, warm, fuzzy. No. But there is good news. Right? There's words that wound, but Solomon said, hey, there's a flip side to that. There's also words that heal. And you have the ability to be someone that speaks healing words out of your mouth. You can rise above tearing someone down. You don't have to be a fault finder. You can be a life giver. Remember back in week 1, we were building our foundation for this series, and I said, hey, the whole goal of this series is we want to be wise with our words. We want to be wise with our words. Solomon says, hey, you want to be wise with your words? The end of verse 18, the tongue of the wise brings healing. It brings healing. And so when you go to the front lines of life, you don't have to carry the sword anymore. You're not out there for military conquest. Instead, you can bring the gauze. You can end up being a part of the triage unit. Hey, listen, the people around you, they're hurting. Everyone who's listening to this message has been absolutely wounded by someone's words. And you have a chance to be a healing medic in their life. You have the chance to speak words of hope and health and healing. That's the opportunity we have. Now, that doesn't mean we don't say hard things to people, or that we're all about flattery, or that we can't confront situations, or that we're trying to make everybody happy. No, sometimes healing words are painful. When you speak healing words, they can be cleansing and help bind the wounds of life. They can bind up where people have been slandered or have disappointments, have been told about their failures over and over and over. And it happens when you point out God's perspective on a situation. And you're in that moment, and you have a chance to speak life to somebody, and you're like, hey, listen, I don't understand fully what's going on, and I'm not trying to act all super spiritual here, and I'm not trying to Jesus juke you. What I am saying is there's some truth about how you can look at this from the eyes of God. There's some truth in the Word of God about who you are, and you can evaluate yourself not on who everyone else says you are, especially that person. Go with what He says. You can speak life, right? Words that heal. And so if we build up this toxic talk list, we also want to build up a healing talk list. What would that include? First of all, it include encouragement. That's to instill courage into somebody else. Some people have the gift of encouragement, but everybody's expected to speak encouragement. It's to speak the truth into someone else's space. Paul said to the Thessalonians, he said, hey, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you're doing. Encouragement isn't telling someone something that's not true so that they feel better. It's instilling courage that they can be built up on the truth. That in spite of what the situation is, in spite of the circumstance, they have one in them who is greater than the one that's in the world, and you can speak that into their space. And we're called to encourage all the time, not just when we feel good, not just when we had a good day, not just when someone encouraged us. See, rather than finding a fault, you can applaud what's right. You can catch someone doing what's right and then tell them about it. The point is that when you see something, that you speak it. When you see it, you speak it. See, here's the thing. We speak criticism without thinking, and we think encouragement without speaking it. It needs to be reversed. Unspoken encouragement is worthless. Paul said to the Ephesians, let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. I want to be an encourager. Another item in the drop-down list of encouraging and healthy talk is kindness. Kindness. Kindness is so underestimated in our culture. Wisdom and kindness are partners. Someone once said you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And yet we're attracting with our speech the kind of people we want around us. I need your help here this morning. By the show of hands, how many people would say, I like it when other people speak to me kindly? Raise your hand. Keep it up. Keep it up. Raise your hand. Keep it up. Look around. Yeah, this was the no-brainer quiz of the day, right? Yeah. And you can put your hands down. Then why are we unkind? Everyone listening to this message likes it when people speak kindly to them. You like it. I like it. And yet we can be so unkind. Kind words and gentle words calm us, and they disarm us, and they can diffuse potentially explosive situations. Solomon said in chapter 16, gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing. Ready for this? To the bones. To the inner man. That's how important our words are. They go all the way to our soul. Kindness and gentleness, they go together. Paul said it's the evidence of the Spirit in Galatians chapter 5. Basically, the byproduct of God's work in my life are the words from my mouth to the ears of those around me. Kind and gentle words are definitely healing words. So we want to be encouraging. We want to be kind. We also want to be hopeful. We want to speak words of hope. The opposite of a fault finder is a hope dealer. I said hope, okay, just to be very clear. And you didn't hear the other thing, right? We want to be a group of hope dealers, okay? We want to offer somebody confident expectation of the future based upon what God has done in the past. We should be a church of people that offer hope. There's a story recorded in the Gospel of John chapter 8 about a woman who gets trapped by a bunch of religious leaders performing an act of sin. She's caught in the middle of adultery, and they drag her out of the situation, super embarrassing, and almost, if you can picture it, into the middle of a town square, and they're all gathered around her, and they're accusing her and everything, and so she's carrying all of this guilt, all of this shame, all of this embarrassment, and she's there. And then Jesus shows up. And he bends down, and in the dirt, we're not really sure what he writes. Most scholars would agree that he probably writes something about the religious leaders. Maybe it's all of the sins they've committed. Maybe it's the names of women that they were with. But what does happen, and what we do know, is they all walk away one by one. And eventually, it's just Jesus and this woman. Talk about a weird predicament. And then he looks at her and he says, "Where are the fault finders? Where are the accusers? Where are these people pointing the finger and wanting to condemn you?" Just picture yourself in that situation. And she's looking around. I guess they're gone. And then he speaks words to her that she had to carry the rest of her life. He says, "Neither do I condemn you. Don't do this anymore. There's a better way. You can find forgiveness and real love going my way rather than yours." He spoke hope. See, Jesus brings hope and healing to situations where people have messed it up so bad. I don't know what you've walked into this room carrying. I don't know what you came to church with. I don't know where you are, wherever you're sitting and listening to this message. I have no idea the kind of situation and how jacked up it is, but I do know that when Jesus shows up, hope is on the scene. And he can reverse what seems irreversible. He's there to speak healing to those who have been wounded and discouraged and deflated and defeated. And maybe that was you. Hope is here. See, I've never met someone that's truly encouraging that I didn't want to be like or around. I've never met a critical person that I wanted to be like or be around. And I've never met a truly encouraging person that I didn't want to be like or be around. What is said sticks. How will your words be remembered? Healing or wounded? See, all of us carry with us the power of words. I can think back on my life, and I can remember wounded words being spoken to me as early as 5 years old. I can also look back and remember encouraging words that were spoken to me when I was a young child. I can think back about how my mom spoke life into my space and said, "Listen, if you will just humble yourself and allow God to lead your life, you can do great things." I think about my dad, who is probably watching this service right now on Facebook, as he does every week, and what he will probably do is by the time I get home, there will be a text from him to me that just says, "I love you and I'm proud of you." You have no idea the power of words. And there's been many women who have spoken life into children and into other people. There's been many men who have spoken life into other people. It's a ministry that we overlook too much, is simply speaking life into other people's spaces. Makes a difference. So I want you to hear the story this morning of one woman who spoke life into her daughter. And her daughter is going to share about how powerful that's been in her world and how she's passing that on to her children. This is the story of Betsy Skaggs.
I'm Betsy Skaggs. My mom, Barb Teach, is a nurse here in Wooster, and she was raised in Wayne County. They've been going to Grace since I was in about 6th grade, so 1986 or so. Mom's kind words impacted me in a big way. From everything I got to see her, first thing in the morning, my mom would be at the dining room table. No matter what time I got up, she was there reading her Bible, doing her devotions and praying for us. And she was always very clear that's what she was doing. So she was praying, a gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger, was one thing my mom used to quote a lot. And she would be praying that she would have that gentle answer to whatever she was going to have that morning when we came down the steps. It helped me as a mom then, because I wanted to be that kind of mom with my kids. I want them to know that I love them and I'm praying for them like mom was for us. You know, I've heard people say that, you know, mom sets the tone for the house, and that's been my experience. One thing I learned from my mom is that what I say matters, and my kids are paying attention even if I'm not realizing that they're listening to me. They're listening to everything I'm saying, and I need to be very careful with my words. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. I love you.
Power of one person's words. The power of your words and my words. And so if what is said sticks, I want life to be what sticks. But the choice is ours every single day. It comes down to this decision. Are we going to speak words that wound, or are we going to speak words that heal? No one listening to this message is beyond this. None of us are. Yeah, it's simple, but lived out is a whole other story. I want to be someone that speaks life into other people's spaces, that encourages them, that speaks kindness in a harsh and mean world, that gives hope in a world that is dying for something that lasts. That's the kind of language I want our church to be known for. I want to be known as the church, man. I'll tell you what, those people speak hope. They speak freedom. That's what I want for all of us. So as we wrap up our time together, I want to invite you for just a few minutes to reflect. If you would join me, bowing your heads, close your eyes, and just ask real sincerely from your heart. Ask God, say, God, speak to me right here today. See, speaking life from our mouth starts by possessing life in our heart. A change of words begins with a change of heart. And there's only one person that can change a heart, and his name is Jesus. I can't change your heart, and you can't change your heart. Only Jesus can. See, that's the message of good news, of hope that comes in Christ. That God created you, He knows you, and He loves you. But there's a problem in your relationship with God. It's called sin. It's cut you off from Him. And He sees it and He knows it. But He doesn't want you to have to stay there anymore. And so He sent the greatest gift He ever could, His Son Jesus, to this earth. And we just celebrated this a few weeks ago on Easter week. That He died on the cross for our sins, that He was buried, and that He rose from the dead. The reason that Jesus went to the cross was to secure forgiveness for you. He wants you to know forgiveness so that you could be set free from your past, from all the things you've said that were wrong and all the things you've done that are wrong, that don't align with His word. And God is inviting you right here today to receive the free gift of His forgiveness through Jesus' death on the cross. And with every head bowed, every eye closed, I invite you to silently in your heart speak to God. His ears are open. He's listening. Just say, God, I want life. I want real life. I want to be forgiven for my past. I want to experience the freedom of your love today. And I want to know for sure that I have forever life with you. If that's the cry of your heart this morning, if that's a conversation you're having with God, I want to invite you to do one thing when our service ends. If you would mind, in every venue, finding your way to the Connect room. You can ask anybody in the hallway, they'll help you. There will be a staff member there to celebrate with you. Not going to keep you long, just help you figure out your next step. You can also let us know by checking the circle in the front of the response card that was in the program you were handed when you walked in. It says, today I receive God's love and forgiveness for me through Jesus Christ. It's the best choice you'll ever make. That's what starts a change in your language, a change in your heart. I know many people listening to this message, you've already experienced the forgiveness of Jesus. You have a relationship with God, and so Christ follower, can I ask you a question? Do the words of your mouth give evidence to the change that's happened in your heart? Sometimes we Christians, in the name of love, can be overly critical. Who are you most critical of? Would you just ask God right here, right now, God, reveal that to me? Would you be big enough to admit it? To confess it and agree with Him that it's wrong? And if He's prompting you, maybe you need to do business with somebody today. Call them, text them, drive to them, talk with them, and seek their forgiveness. I also know that many people listening to this message, you have been wounded by someone's words. And you have been carrying this for far too long. I want to invite you to do something. Listen, I'm no psychologist. And I can't understand or comprehend all that's been said to you. But I would ask you on this Mother's Day 2019 that you would step over that for just a second. I'm not minimizing it. Didn't say it didn't happen. But what if you could reverse the curse? What if you could, instead of being someone that was wounded and in turn wound other people, could be someone that say, hey, you know what? I was wounded, but by God's grace, Psalm 147:3, He binds up our wounds and heals the brokenhearted. That God has healed me, and now I speak words that heal. Now I'm going to be a life giver. You could, by God's grace and His Spirit, speak life. And be determined to reverse that curse in your world. Be a life giver. Speak life. Speak hope. God, thank you for every person listening to this message. I ask today, God, that you would give us the courage, the boldness, and the Spirit's leadership to be people who speak life. God, may we speak life all week long. Every single encounter that we have, may we speak words of healing, encouragement, and kindness and hope into other people's spaces. Thank you for the challenge and the call. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Well, I hope you are inspired and encouraged by what you've experienced here today. At Grace Church, we believe that there's always a next step, and I trust that God is beginning to reveal your next step to you now. If that's the case, would you share that with us? You can do that on the response card right on the Grace Church app. We would love to pray with you and help you take that next step. Well, thanks again for choosing to connect with us online, and have a great day.